Recording.
It's see people have started to join though. People don't they wait to. Oh God, my this is.
In the spirit of communication, I want to ask this question innocent. The reason why I said that is because sometimes you have the opportunity to explain yourself and then you just can't fly.
Charles, what's good? Can you hear me?
I can.
What's good? Are you ready? You're looking what?
How are we looking?
Look up, I'm actually very fine. Oh, I need to take a picture. Please don't let anybody know. Oh yeah, 3 people already. Great.
Hey.
All right. Shalom, let's go.
So welcome to the Decoded Book Review. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome everyone. My name is Akombi. My name is Shalom and I am your host. Welcome. Please just go to your group chats wherever you came from and then tell people that the Decoded Book Review has started. As we're waiting for more people to join, we're going to start officially in about five minutes. So by 4:46 we should start. But in the meantime, just introduce yourself. You can go to the chat box, tell us your name, what you do, who you are. Yeah, you can even chat us up and you can even put on your microphones and just tell us how your week went, your high and low points. And yes, everything that happened this week. This week was an hectic week. Actually, for me, oh God, there was no coming down at all. Hello, Palumi, we can't hear you.
No cap. This week was hectic and stressful.
And it's not going to get better anytime soon. As I'm looking at it,
Why do you
be
say
fine,
so?
Sha. No, see, I know what I'm talking about, but everything. Okay, I don't want to prophesy something bad into my future, but really, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Welcome everybody. Welcome everyone that's joining us, Mr. Kola, Latif. Latif's always joining us every book review. Welcome, Latif. Stanley, Mr. Chika. Welcome. Really happy to have you here. Today's book.
Thank you.
You are in for a treat.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chika. So, today's book. Oh, who's that? Stanley.
Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Stanley. Mr. Stanley. Thank you. Mr. Stanley, would you just like to tell us about your week, your high and low point? Oh, Mr. Izu, welcome. Oh, Mr. Izu is putting on my camera today. I told you this book review. We are in for a treat. This is a special book review.
Is it good to
Hi,
see you?
welcome everybody.
Augustine, you. How you doing, sir?
How you doing? I don't know.
Ah,
Good to
very
see
well.
you. I don't know.
Yeah, I did,
Yeah,
Jerry.
I saw your invite on the book review. I said I should join.
We for good fire for you, the special guest of honor, Stanley Oparocha. All right, guys, go ahead. Well done. I'm just gonna stand by. The need to
Money.
Yeah.
Hello, who's speaking? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Kwalimi, you want to say something?
Yeah, just that everyone should please go to the chat section, tell us your name, tell us what you do, and about, tell us where you're coming from. So if you're coming from the HBC, tell us HBC. If you're from anywhere else, if you're from Twitter, tell us Twitter. I'm very sure that this broadcast is also live on Twitter. So hi everyone, I'm Freddie Me. Hope you guys missed me. They said it was very boring.
Not.
They said it was boring.
Really?
That was the feedback I got.
Really? Who said that?
Feedback.
Okay. I have no comments.
Just joking. Anyways.
Everyone that said that it was boring, God is watching you. Moving on.
Your beef for Shalom. It was actually really good. Nobody missed you.
Exactly. Mr. Izu took over. So you're saying that Mr. Izu was boring last week.
I did
Telling
say
me.
so.
Oh, really?
I beg, end of the month.
Where's HR? Please give HR. Tell HR to give Palumi query.
Query. Yes. Okay, so we're just going to wait for more people to join. Okay, oh, it's time. We should start. So welcome to everyone who has joined us today, all 12 of us. Today's book, like I said, we're in for a treat. Competition Demystified. See, even the name should tell you that this book is not an ordinary book. It's so amazing. And while I'll give the mic over to my co-host Palumi to talk about this book, I really feel like I should emphasize the fact that this book is a must-read, an essential and a must-read for entrepreneurs, for business owners, even for people looking to go into growth management, growth, or people who build strategies. Extremely important. And I won't say much. I'll just give the mic over to Palumi and tell us about the author and a quick summary of what the book is about.
Right. Thank you very much, Shalom. Thank you guys for joining. I'm Palumi, as we all know. And today, in fact, what building on what Shalom said, if your business is in an industry, this book is for you. So I don't know whose business, I don't know if your business is in an industry, because this book is actually very solid. It gives a lot of tips about competition, competitive advantage, economies of scale, and a whole lot. So let's dive right in. But before we dive right in, please let's head on to the chat section. I haven't seen any chats. I haven't seen any introductions. Yeah. Should I go first? You guys want me to go first? Okay, okay, Shalom, please go first. While
okay.
Please follow Shalom. Let's see your names. Let's see your beautiful names. If you also want to turn on your video, you're highly welcome to. Right, and please let us know where you're coming from, HBC or wherever. All right. So the name of the book we'll be reviewing today is Competition Demystified. Competition Demystified, a radically simplified approach to business strategy. A radically simplified approach to business strategy. So I feel like this book is a paradox in itself, because why would you put radically and simplified beside themselves? That's what they call that thing in literature, is the oxymoron. But it's still, because it actually builds on Michael Porter's work, and I know that we've reviewed that book before, Competitive Strategy, that one that talked about focus, competition, the 5 forces and all that. So this book basically builds upon that book. So the authors of the book, they're Bruce Greenwald and Judd Kahn. Bruce Greenwald, see, okay, and Judd Kahn. Right, both are professors. One is a professor at Columbia University. The other one is a CEO of an investment management firm, right? And these guys are actually gurus because Wall Street refers to Bruce Greenwald as a guru to Wall Street's gurus. If you're calling you the Oga of all the Ogas, you know that this guy is actually very, very solid. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Agogi. I can see your introductions. Yeah. So the thing is, both of these guys, they've not just written this book, this Competition Demystified. They've also written another book called Value Investing, from Graham to Buffett and beyond. Right. So we can see that they actually complement each other and stuff that they do. Am I still audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello.
You are still audible. We can still hear you calling me.
Yes, you are. We can hear you pretty well.
Looks like he's having a little bit of network issue. I'm just going to wait for a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I think what we're saying is that these people are basically gurus, experts in their field. So when they wrote this book, they did. Calling me, are you back?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes, we can.
Sorry, I lost you guys for right. So as I was saying, these guys are actually very solid. That's about the authors, right? Because one is the CEO, one is a guru to all gurus. Let's see what they have to tell us, right? Because I really actually enjoyed this book. Reading this book opened my eyes to a couple of things, right? So let's take a quick flashback to Michael Porter's book, Competitive Strategy. I know that he talked about 5 forces, which is generally known as Porter's 5 forces, right? Does anybody want to remind us of a particular force, any force that you remember? The Porter's 5 forces. Just tell us one that you
I would like to go.
It's literally impossible for you to have an MBA or an MSc in any management or strategy course and not know Porter's 5 forces. Is like the fundamental of strategy and competition, right? So you have like threat of entrance, new entrants, barrier to entry, threat of new entrants. Of course, I'm just rephrasing them. Of course, you have suppliers, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, and all that. Porter's is the father of modern day management, the same way the likes of McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y, is the father of human resource and Maslow hierarchy of needs. I think the older fathers of management would be Maslow, Frederick Taylor, that's Theory X, Theory Y. And further ahead, you're going to have the guy that wrote the Principles of Management. I'm not sure I can remember the name. Those are like the founding fathers of management. Yeah, Henry Fayol. Yeah, Henry Fayol. Those are the founding fathers. And the modern fathers would be the likes of Michael Porter. I would like to put Jim Collins on that table, and even Jack Welch, right, of GE, guys that revolutionized it. Right. Well, Jack Welch should be more practical in the field. He was never really an academician per se. I'll probably put Jack Welch the same way, the same time when Henry Fayol and Frederick Gerger was doing the academic work. The likes of Henry Ford was doing the practical work with the Ford motor vehicle and the assembly line. So while these guys were teaching division of labor, right, in schools, Ford was practicing division of labor in the factory, So yeah. Go ahead, guys.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
And what we're having the question is so that everyone who's joining management has to really go back to study these guys. You must have gone through their book of works, like you going through economics and not knowing who, what's this guy's name, Robbins? What's his name? The guy.
C. Robbins.
Yes, C. Robbins. Or yeah, just for all you reading physics or engineering and not know who Isaac Newton is, those are like the fathers of science, you know what I mean? So yeah, everyone should be a student of these people.
Yeah, and personally, I feel that it's not even about the course that you study. Management is something that everybody must have done at least once. I know that when I was studying accounting, we did management in 100 level. We did all these principles, probably in economics in secondary school. So at least you must have come across it once in your life. So thank you very much, Mr. Izu. So what we're going to do now is we're going to narrow the 5 forces down to 3. Because what this book, what Competition Demystified actually, what it did is to pick out just one out of the 5 forces. It says that that's the most important force. That's why I said that this book is an extension of Potter's book, Competitive Strategy. So the 3 forces are threats of substitute goods, barriers to entry, or threat of new entrants in that case, and bargaining power of supplier. So I'm throwing the question to the audience, to everybody. We have 3 forces: threat of substitute goods, threat of new entrants, and bargaining power of suppliers. Which one do you think has the most effect on any business? Which one do you think has all of them definitely would affect the business, but which one will have the greatest impact? So over to the audience. Let's see. Does anyone want to talk? If you don't know what to say, just unmute yourself and pick one random one. You might get it. Never can tell. All right, who's going first? Don't even let me start calling names. I can see who is on this call. Right, I can see.
You know, like to know, if you guys were to charge for every time people don't respond, you guys would be like on Dangote's level right now.
Yeah, and I've resigned from Excel since.
So practically, just in case you don't want to respond, you can actually drop the chat on the chat section.
Yeah, Mr.
Right,
Benjamin just did. He said the 3rd one for me.
Okay, 3rd one, which is the bargaining power of suppliers. All right. Who else is going next? Which has the greatest impact? Which do you think has the greatest impact? Bargaining power of suppliers, threat of new entrants, threat of substitute goods or services. Just take one more so that we can go ahead. I'm not even going deep into the book. All right. Who's speaking?
Mr. Dyer, do you want to say something? Okay.
Okay, Shalom.
No, are you talking about me?
Yes,
Yes,
we're talking
sir.
about you.
Sorry, I just joined, and so I'm trying to get a grasp of what you're talking about. Sorry, I came late. I'll pick up, and if I need to ask questions, I will.
Okay.
Okay,
For
no
the
problem.
benefit of those jobs joining, we're reviewing the book Competition Demystified, right? We're just saying that the authors of this book actually built on Michael Porter's book, right? So not to waste any time, what Bruce and Jad talks about, what they talked about is that the threat of new entrants is actually the most important. This is actually subject to criticism by everybody, but for them, threat of new entrants is the most important. And I'll tell you why. Why is because they believe that once you're able to deal with new people coming into your industry, right, then you're good to go, right? I know that they actually stand to be corrected because, fine, even if you've prevented people from coming into your industry, how do you deal with your customers? How do you deal with your suppliers and all that? But for them, the most important is threat to new entrants. And we all know that how to prevent new entrants from coming into your industry is by putting barriers to entry, right? Those factors that will prevent people from coming into your industry, right? That could be probably a patent, could be a government legislation, it could be anything, it could even be monopoly, it could be anything, as long as people, once new businesses discover that, oh shoot, there's this particular barrier that won't let us come in, that's a barrier to entry, right? And because of this, the book also talks about competitive advantage, right? At this point, I'm actually going to hand over to Charlie. But just one thing, the book says, when you're in an industry, right, and you have competitive advantage, that's good for you. All you have to do is maintain the competitive advantage. But if you do not have competitive advantage, what do? You maintain operational effectiveness, right? And it's let's break that down. That's simply saying that if there's no competition, if there's a high level of competition in your industry, what you should do, because basically let's look at Milo and Bonvita. We know that these guys are actually those products are like substitute goods. So because you realize that and you try to do all you can, there's still that competition there. In fact, there are even other people trying to enter that industry. I mean, look at Ovaltine and the rest of them, right? But what the book advises to do is to maintain operational effectiveness and efficiency. What that means is grabbing your economies of scale, making sure you get ahead of production, being the least producer in the market. So all this is what the book actually talks about. It tries to break down competition, tries to look at how a company can achieve competitive advantage, looks at how you can prevent other people from coming into your industry, right? And basically maintaining competitive. So that's basically the overview of the book. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Shalom. You guys, I didn't answer my question. I'm coming back for you. I have other serious questions to ask. But yeah,
Okay.
over to you, Shalom.
Okay, thank you so much for me. I think Pelumi spoke a lot about what this book is about. But I'm going to start from here. I'm going to start from where Mr. Izu emphasized Michael Porter's 5 forces of competition. There are 5 of them: threat of new substitutes, threat of new entrants, bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers, and the last one, intensity of competitive rivalry. And why do we go back to another book when we are trying to explain another? It's because of, Michael Porter's 5 forces of competition is timeless. It will always be relevant. Bruce and his co-author goes an extra step, and then they placed emphasis, like Pelumi said, on one which they said was the most important, which is the intensity of threat of new. Sorry, that's a mistake. Intensity of competitive rivalry. Am I correct, Pelumi?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So in Michael Porter's book, he spoke extensively about product differentiation, essentially creating a unique value proposition. And what does this mean? It means that no matter which industry you are, no matter how many competitors you have, you always have to differentiate yourself, make that unique value proposition, like we said in the very beginning, that if you would like to remain relevant, you have to create that differentiation, really. So people have to see one thing that's unique about it that makes it different from another. But in this book, they actually were against it. And Greenwald was like, it's not important, or as important as the intensity of competitive rivalry. And why does it say that? We take a company like, let's see, Mercedes. Okay, that's a very good example. So of course they are a very good brand. They have a very good, their product is differentiated. In what way? In the fact that they are a luxury brand. But that doesn't make them anything special, because there are other people who are doing just as good as they have. We have Lexus, we have BMW, and sometimes that may vary. This year they do better. Sometimes another car brand does better, but it doesn't make them doesn't give them a certain level of competitive advantage according to Greenwald. And this is because of that level of margin that is always blurred year by year. But is that one thing that differentiates all of them is from getting new people to enter into their that industry is a legitimate emphasis on legitimate barrier of entry. And that is what the book is really about, that barrier of entry. So it says that it is that barrier of entry, that force, that barrier, okay, that barrier that keeps people out, okay? Because if there's a barrier of entry that is so, that doesn't really exist, and people or businesses are able to enter into the industry again and again, it's really reduces the profits of the of your business. Really, let's come down to your business. But when there's this legitimate barrier of entry, and it mentions three, okay: supply, demand, and scale of economy of scale. I would mean, when these three things come to play, it limits that barrier of entry, and it makes you basically have more profits. And it makes emphasis on profits in what sense? Because if you are not making profits, if a lot of people are coming into the industry and there's a lot of substitutes, there really isn't any, like your market share really reduces, okay? And so this is what the book summarizes. I'm so sorry. I think I need to catch my breath. Okay, so this is what the book summarizes. And in the very beginning, I said that it is very important that entrepreneurs and CEOs go over this book again and again, because if they really want to understand the difference between the difference between competitor analysis, creating that barrier, that legitimate barrier of entry, and creating an enduring business value, that's business value that would stand firm from year to year, you need to read this book to fully understand that. But let's go forward. What is competitors, a legitimate competitive advantage? You know, Palumi said that one thing that I'm going to emphasize again here is that if you do not have a competitive analysis advantage, you should create this system of efficiency that cannot be shaken. Okay, because some companies, you come into a new industry, and that is if you can even get in, because there are some industries that you just can't get into because of one of the things. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just say yes, I can hear you. Okay, looks like you can't hear me.
Yes, I can hear
Hello?
you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, you are being heard loud and clear. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so if you are a company who gets into an thank you. So if you're a company that gets into an industry and you really don't have that market share in that industry, I was saying that, like Panumi emphasized that create that efficient system. Okay, but let's say you get into an industry, or you are in that industry, one of the pay centers of that industry. Greenwald emphasizes three genuine competitive advantage that you can have. And number one that it emphasizes is supply. So what is supply? Supply is that cost advantage that allows big firms to mass produce and still have that and still be cheap in a sense. Okay, so you're creating a lot of goods, you're creating a lot of you're giving out services, but you create it in such a large quantity that it makes you cheap, which is one of your competitive and advantage, because other people getting into the industry might create that same product, but they might not be as cheap as you are, because of their creating their scale is not, yes, that's the word, their scale is not as big as you are. So that is one thing that you should write on, that supply, that's supply advantage, number one. And that is one thing that it talks about, and this can come in different ways. It could, and one thing that it has is,
maybe we should break this home in terms of using practical examples. And then Nigerian,
yes, that's what I'm about to do.
Okay, I was going to ask you that Nigerian brands that I mean, just throw it up to everyone, including you as well. Are there Nigerian brands that are able to stay on top competition simply by using size And when I say size, not size like a Goliath trying to bully younger people or smaller brand like a Dangote would do, but by sheer ingenuity of their suppliers. Are there examples? Or maybe you want to start with
Yes,
the
there is.
but,
There is. There is number one, Coca-Cola. I don't think there is any better example. Coca-Cola is such a brand that no matter the amount of drinks that come into the industry, you can't be a rival to Coca-Cola.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's a squeaky sound in your stuff. I don't know if it's in a hands-free or so, but it's quite squeaky, and you might need to look at that.
Is it better now?
Yes, I think as you move it, yes, I think it's better now.
Okay. So Coca-Cola has maintained this place in the industry because of the years it has been in that industry. So no matter the brand that comes in, there are people who will not who will not buy another drink because they have drank it year after year since they were young. So it's that habit, number one, that habit that customers has formed with your product is something that you can't just break easily, or other brands can't just break easily because of there's another substitute. Okay, so number two could be experience or.
Let me
Mr.
another example. So what you're saying, because I was hoping you were going to make an example around each of the Potter's forces and how you can sort of use that, but I guess you're talking about now substitute goods, ability to create a barrier that substitute goods can't come in. That's what you mean, right? So for example, no matter the number of in the last 5 years, the company that's giving Coca-Cola a big run for their money in Nigeria. If anybody follows soda war, which is a big cola, big cola, they're way cheaper. Some people say it's sweeter, and of course it's bigger. That's why it's called big cola. But there is something Coca-Cola had done, which is the habits, right? Coca-Cola is addictive, right? It's very addictive. So that addiction formula thing that they have is for the reason. But I probably just go back to my childhood, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. The gaming industry has a lot of this. I grew up playing Famicom, Sega, Nintendo, right? I think towards secondary school or university, we had like PlayStation, and then later on we had the Xbox. I don't know what you guys play in your generation now, or you Gen Z guys. But what do you guys play these days?
We play PlayStation.
No, you guys still play PS. What year of PS are they in now? We stopped at PS3.
5.
Yeah, you guys are still borrowing from our generation, right? So I saw something that happened as a child, right? Because if you're doing a business and you have a product, you've got to have an element in that product or that business that makes people addicted or stuck. That is basically something that makes them stuck. Even they wanted to move out, they won't be able to move out. So I remember then, Nintendo had Mario, right? For years, Mario was the original game that came Nintendo. Funny enough, I realized later that Nintendo didn't actually own Mario. They just signed a supplier agreement with the developers of Mario to ensure that they can't develop for any other console. They're called consoles and they're game developers, right? So I don't even know what the game developer companies are called as. So like the software and the hardware part of the business, right? So and for years we stuck to Nintendo because you could buy your Sega, but you will not have Mario on Sega. And Mario was the most popular game then, Mario Bros. I don't know if anybody can relate. If you can, please let us know. Until Sega came, and Sega created their own equivalent, which was Sonic the Hedgehog. Right, for years we all got stuck with Sega because of Sonic the Hedgehog, right? And this just explains how much I was a game person. So, what is that Sega you have? What is that Sonic you have for your Sega? Matter of fact, every game console that has become big in the last 20, 30 years all use that same strategy. When PlayStation, Sony had won the gadget market by a large margin. Sony in the 90s, in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s were like the biggest electronics company in the world, right? I mean, every TV, there wasn't LG and Samsung and LG were just coming up. So what they started to do was when they had conquered the market, they now moved out of the market, started taking the edge of the market. So they had conquered the TV market. Every major TVs in the world was Sony TV. So they now created Sony Games, which was what was the PlayStation. So it was actually called the Sony PlayStation. Right, but follow this. Then they launched their own, they borrowed the same strategy, which is Tekken. There was a game called Tekken. I don't remember Tekken, right? Yeah, that's what's called Tekken, right? Yeah, it was Tekken. Yeah, Tekken was the game that stuck with. Did they still have Tekken with PS? And PS had that for years, right? You know, so that's pretty much what it is. You've got to have that one thing, like in your business, that you used to trap other people. That even if you decide to leave, they can't leave because of that thing you used to trap them. Even the good old Apple does that. You know, you want to leave the Apple, right? You want to leave the iPhone, but you remember that you're going to lose all of your songs. I'm not sure there's any framework that allows you to move your songs from iPhone to a Techno or a Samsung. No. You lose your songs if you buy a new iPhone. Sorry, if you buy a new phone that is not an iPhone, you lose all your songs. Like, you know, some of us have been collecting songs for the past 10 years, right? So I think everybody has got that thing in their business that they used to trap other people. I guess that's really what you're trying to say, Shalom, right?
Yes, actually, yeah, but you went over to the next point, which is demand advantage. But yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to emphasize. Now, like, for example, Mr. Izu spoke about iPhone, and the book spoke about a certain technology that you would have and that would make you a competitive, that would give you a competitive advantage. So you have a, hello? Okay, please mute yourself, gifted child. Okay, so that unique technology, that unique location that you have, it could even be that price, that really that pricing that could affect your customers, even you if they switch over to another product. Okay, so it could be that they will have to spend more, it will be more, it will be costly to transition. Basically create that unique advantage that would hook your customers, really. And that is what supply advantage is, something you're giving your customers that has created this hook and hold on them. Okay, so the next point, demand advantage, will be taken by Pelumi, my co-host. Pelumi, are you here? Hello. Okay. Pelumi, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So you can take demand advantage, the next point in a competitive advantage.
So, sorry, I just thought about something there. People actually don't realize how much noodles markets. You know, the Nigerian noodles market is oligopolistic, right? It's not a perfectly competitive market. It's not a monopoly, it's an oligopoly. There are only 4 players in the noodles market, right? And you find something in the noodles market. People actually don't realize that all noodles are actually the same. What makes them different is actually the seasoning. Right, the seasoning. So I would suspect, and I don't know, so this is not law and you can't, I haven't verified it, but I would suspect that an Indomie, right, doesn't produce its own seasoning. Right, they might not be producing their own seasoning, but what they would have done is to lock up an agreement with whoever is producing the seasoning, right, to be a sole supplier, and they probably have a proprietary license, right? Because it'd be so easy for, say, what's another competitor to noodles now? I don't even know their names. Mimi. I don't know if there's still Mimi in the market.
Chiki.
What? Chiki. Yeah, Chiki. Because Chiki, if they don't do that, right, Chiki can easily go to that same producer, which in this case would be a supplier to Indomie, and say, please, can you supply me the same sauce? And that would close up the competitive advantage that Indomie has, because in the end, it's all the same, basically. So, and I think that most people have to be able to think that way. I know for years, and sometimes, and the only way you can do that, because Nigeria is such a funny country, even if you do a proprietary agreement, our law is not strong enough that they will not go behind to produce. So what you might need to do is to backward integrate and buy up that factory that produces for you, but don't change the name, right? It's a very strange model. I don't know if anybody does this very well, but let me give a good example of this. Okay, so Range, right? Land Rover. I drove Land Rover Range brand of cars for years, and I noticed something with all the Range and the Land Rover cars, that there's a particular speaker that, I mean, one of the things that is a competitive advantage to Land Rover is their sound system, right? Land Rovers and Ford have one of the best sound systems, and I think because Land Rover was, I think it's Kentrick, I can't remember the name of the brand now. It's one of those very premium speaker companies, right? Like Bose, and of course, everyone that drives a Ford knows that the Ford has Sony as their official audio company. But practically what Ford will do is for Ford to buy up equity in Sony, right? Even they cannot buy up everything, they own a strategic amount of equity so they can control who Sony supplies to and who Sony doesn't supply to. Does anybody start to see how that game works? Right. So I think every businessman has got to be able to do that. But of course, this looks like it's a big business problem or it's a big business thing because you have to have enough money to backward integrate. But until Nigerian businesses can start to think that way. Now, if you're the small dog who supplies to a big dog, why don't you sell the idea to your big dog? Right. Let me give you another practical example. For years, I know I have a client for years who supplied Indomie. Right, the palm oil that Indomie used to make their noodles. A major part of noodles is oil and flour. But there was something brilliant Indomie did years ago. And this, of course, broke this guy's business, but gave Indomie a bigger competitive advantage. It was Indomie going into oil business. And I don't think they would have built it from scratch. I don't know, a lot of people don't know that Indomie actually owns Power Oil. Right, Indomie actually owns Power Oil, the same parent company that owns both. Right, so you see, and that's sort of like how, because a lot of Nigerian businesses go into competition without a competitive advantage. Don't compete if you don't have a competitive advantage. If you don't have a competitive advantage, stay behind. Just stay on your lane. Right, so you've got to say, what is my competitive advantage? Is it the supplier's proprietary license that I have? Is there an agreement? Right, and that's really, for years, Bua and Dangote fought for years over a particular area in, I think it was Edo State, right? Because that place had the most potent raw material for the supply of the raw material they needed to do cement, right? And people don't know what happened behind the scene with even the Edo State governorship elections between when the governor fell out with Adams Oshiomhole and the people behind in terms of financing and all that, right? Because it's so important. So it's not enough that you're facing your customers. A lot of competition tells you face your customers, you know, show your competition, win competition. But the main fight is actually facing your, right? The main fight is actually facing your suppliers, right? Is actually facing your suppliers, right? You know, someone was asking me about a particular thing I used to do before and how I was able to keep the cost stagnant for a very long time. What they didn't know about that particular project or that particular product, roughly like 4 or 5 years, was that the advantage I had was the fact that the place I was using for that session for years was not paid for, right? And it's a 5-star hotel, right? So even if you want to compete, right, you cannot compete at the same margin as me, right? Because you have to put a fixed cost on rent, which I don't have as a fixed cost on rent, right? And I don't know if that sort of makes sense, but in sports and entertainment, a lot of people have this type of proprietary mindset, and it gives them the advantage to do things that other people cannot do, right? So until you have the advantage that other people cannot do, you can't go into that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Izu. That is just amazing. I think one of the final points that you made was that sometimes your competitor do certain things and then you feel like you can meet that margin, but you really don't know what goes on behind the scene. And that is another thing about competitive advantage. It's not in this book, but it's in the connection that you have. So when we say that come for the breakfast with Izu, come for the book review, come for the decoded event, it is very important. Mr. Izu said that the place that he was using for so many years for his training sessions, it was not paid for, not because of he was slapping the person that owns the place every time
because there was a barter, because of the barter system.
Exactly, that's the word. It was a barter system. Okay, connections can't just form out of the blues or the air. It's something that you have to be very conscious about. So I'll just quickly give the floor over to Pelumi so he can explain the second point.
Right. Thank you very much, Shalom. Thank you, Mr. Izu. Once again, we're reviewing the book Competition Demystified, a radically simplified approach to business strategy by Bruce Greenwald and John Kahn. And remember that we're talking about 3 kinds of genuine competitive advantage. How can you, as a business, have competitive advantage? To recap, the first one talked about supply, and now we're in demand. So I'm going to be talking on 3 major touch points. One is access to market demand. Second is habit forming products. And then we'll talk about switching costs, right? Switching costs is what Mr. Izu and Shalom already talked a bit on, right? So access to market demand. What the book says is you've actually got to know where you belong. Or let me rephrase that. Your business has got to know where each of its products belong. I'm very sure we're familiar with this model, the Boston Consulting Group matrix. That model that classifies products into different, categories. One category talks about dogs, another talks about stars, cash cows, and what's the other one? Question mark. So the way this matrix works is a classification based on two things. One is market growth, and the other is market share. So how I want us to follow along is if you have a business and you sell different products, for example, we know that Dangote has Dangote sugar, Dangote cement, and the rest. You've got to be able to, classify your products into that matrix to know which is which, because when we're done with the matrix, we're going to see why. So first of all, market growth. So it tries to show a relationship between market growth and then market share. So for example, is the market growing by 20%? Is the market growing fast? If yes, is your product having a big share of that market, right? So for example, let me start with stars. Stars are products that they're in markets that are actually growing fast. They have a high rate of growth in that industry. And they also have a high ownership, a high share of that market, right? I'm going to be giving practical examples after, right? The next ones are cash cows. So we know that it's possible for a market to not be growing, right? It's possible for a market to have a low market growth rate, but still have a very large market share. Right. The example I'm going to give here is HP. So there was a documentary on how HP were able to cover the cost of their printers, right? Because I know it was either very small or nothing at all. But they were able to come out and say, okay, when we sell printers to bookshops or schools or whatever, they buy printers, just buy the printer now once. But you know that for that printer to keep working, it needs an ink. And ink is what actually sells periodically. That's how they get their money. So they've been able to identify that an ink in their case is a cash cow, because even if the market isn't growing, people, they still have a huge part of that market, right? And they use that to service the cost of printers that doesn't grow, which in this case is a dog. So in summary, you've got to be able to classify your products, see where they fall in that matrix, because that's when you can now actually isolate the particular product, right, and then exploit it, see how you can get more share, right? Another thing I'll be talking about is switching costs. So a very important concept is you've got to make your customers not leave you, or at least you've got to make them think twice, right? So I'll be giving Microsoft as an example. So we know companies like KPMG, companies like Buildware, even schools, I know even Unilag actually uses Microsoft as its embedded software. So how, like for example, when you get admission, and that they give all their students a particular school email, right? They give you access to that Microsoft, scheme and all. Same thing with KPMG. So you know that Microsoft has Microsoft Word, right, for typing. They have Microsoft Excel, they have Microsoft Outlook, they have Microsoft Teams and all of that. So let's take KPMG, for example. KPMG will take Microsoft, and for every person or employee that comes into the business, you get access to each of these features, right? So let's say KPMG pays Microsoft on an annual basis, right? It's a subscription plan, an annual subscription plan. So let's say somewhere into June, they decide that they want to move to G Suite. So we know that as Microsoft has the Dynamics 365, there's also the G Suite app. So for example, Microsoft Office in Microsoft Word in Microsoft. The replica of that in G Suite is Google Docs, right? Excel is Google Sheets. You know, Microsoft Outlook is the Gmail. So there's definitely like a replica. So KPMG might decide that, okay, we don't want to use Microsoft anymore. Let's move on to Google Suite, probably because Microsoft are now charging them higher. As a company, you've got to be able to, you know, make your customers think twice. And I'll tell you why. KPMG knows that if a particular employee, because if they're switching from Microsoft to G Suite, they'd have to remodify everything basically, because you know, when you come in, they give you an official email address, say shalom@microsoft or kpmg.com, something like that. The moment you do not use Microsoft Server and you want to start using Google, maybe you want to start using Gmail, for example, that domain name has to change, right? So you're saying you're going to change the domain name of everybody who works in that organization. Not just that, right? So many other things. So sometimes it might not even be cost. That switching cost might not even be monetary, right? It might be psychological, it might be social. As long as you're incurring something just because you're leaving a particular product, is a switching cost. So as a company, you've got to be able to make your customers think twice about the switching cost of, if I stop using this product, what's going to happen, right? You see that with iOS and another app, like Mr. Isu said, you have all your songs on your iPhone. The moment you decide you want to move to a Samsung, what happens to all your music, right? What happens to the iCloud that you normally pay for? For example, I know Hexavia is really big on media, pictures and videos. All that is stored on the iCloud. So if the head of PR says he wants to start using an Infinix phone, so how do you now transfer all those things that are backed on the iCloud, which you can only access via an iPhone? How do you now transfer all that to the Google Cloud, right? So you've got to make your customers think twice. Another good example is, so I'm looking at how all of us as business owners can implement this in our business. So let's say Foundation 360 now. Foundation 360 is actually Hexavia's sister company. We do recruitment and everything human resources. So let's say Foundation 360 enters into a contract, right, with another company to do job ads, recruitment, interviews, and then even when the employees come in, we onboard them, right? That's what Foundation 360. So let's say Hexavia, for example, now decides to stop using Foundation 360, which is not possible anyways. But then they decide to stop using Foundation 360 and move on to Jobberman. You know quite well that Jobberman will only place ads for you and conduct interviews, but won't do onboarding for you. I don't know if they do that for. Do you get the point? The fact that Foundation 360 will do onboarding, that's a switching cost for Hexavia, right? Because you've got to think twice that, wow, so after I pay Jobberman to give me candidates, I also have to pay somebody else to come and train and onboard them. So in summary, you basically have to, you know, give your customers, they have to think twice. They have to consider the cost of switching to another.
Let me give another practical example of this.
Yeah.
I sit on an advisory board with a company that also has Cosmosmatica also on that advisory board. Cosmosmatica is the owner of Coscharis, and he shared a story, and I thought it was quite interesting. And I also sort of noticed this. Why do rich people who drive Rolls Royce, Range Rover, Jaguar, those are rich people's cars, right? Why do they always buy it from Coscharis? Right? Yes, you'd be surprised there's no Coscharis that sells those cars. Yes, they might have the distributorship license, right? The other people that sell, and sometimes it's not on price. Coscharis might not even be cheaper than the other guys who are bringing them in. But you see, there are things that Coscharis used to make people, that's the switching cost. The fact that you buy a car from a Coscharis and they can tell you that, oh, you buy the car, right? We'll give you two years warranty or 1 year warranty. And the reason why they can do that is because behind the scene, they have a workshop and they have staff on standby who can fix your car. Or they can say, oh, if you buy a car from us, even a small auto check, use the word small, they're not small. Even auto check, the new digital brand for technology and cars. You buy a car from auto check, they tell you for 1 year, we'll give you free maintenance, right? They give you free maintenance. So those small elements that they're using as perk are actually decision makers for people who want to buy, right? So, but there's actually a template for it. So you have to find some other complementary products that makes people stay to buy, right, from you, as against to buy from another competition. So for indicator cost charges is, oh, you know what, you buy your part from cost charges, you buy your car from cost charges because you know that if anything goes wrong, you can always take it back to cost charges. 1. 2, you buy your car from cost charges knowing that they give me free maintenance. 2, you buy your cost charges because they also maybe have like, and I don't know why cost charges hasn't done this. I'd expected cost charges to own the BMW club, you know, or a Range Rover club, an elitist club, you know, because cost charges is rich enough to take a whole floor in a hotel and turn it to a lounge, but only for cost charges members, which means only people who have bought, I hope I'm not giving these guys free ideas, right? Anybody who has bought either Range Rover, Range Rover, Jaguar, Ford, and even Rolls Royce, right, can actually go there, free membership. It's sort of like what the airlines would do. You know, you fly business class and they put you in a lounge, exclusive. That's a switching cost, right? There are people who fly business class because they don't want to go through that whole hurdle in Nigerian airports, right? With customs, anything for the boys. After anything for the boys, NDLA will come, anything for the boys. After NDLA comes, immigration will say anything for the boys. And apart from the money you give, right, is also the stress, right? So some people don't want all of that. So they just want priority treatment. So I think people should be able to do that. But here's the template. You can either do this in the part of either pleasure or pain. What someone called, there's a book, I can't remember the book, it's called, introduced a concept called vitamins and painkillers. So you can either do it from a painkiller perspective or from a vitamin perspective. So painkiller means you can do it from a fear perspective. So the reason, for example, Koshari is saying, you can always give you free maintain, if your car is spoiled, you can always bring it in. That's a painkiller. Is the fear that you don't want your Rolls Royce to get spoiled and you don't know who to fix it. The worst you want to do is buy a car for 200 million naira or 400 million naira. Right now, dollar rate, you can buy a car for 300 million naira. You don't want to carry your 300 million naira car to a roadside mechanic to use it to learn, because Nigerian, everybody is hustling. In Nigerian mechanic that does Toyota will tell you, Nigerian mechanic that does Toyota, you can try a Rolls Royce. You don't want to try that. So the fear of letting your Rolls Royce, not the gasket to burn or, you know, the water pump to go off, you probably use that. So you can use fear or you can use pleasure. All right. So I give a very practical example of this. And I'm using the weirdest example, 2 churches that are too different in ways, right? MFM versus House on the Rock. I feel like they both have high switching costs. Matter of fact, I would even say that MFM has a higher switching cost than a Christ Embassy. People don't easily leave MFM as much as people leave House on the Rock. Matter of fact, if another funky church opens next to House on the Rock, people will move. And that's why House on the Rock over the years have lost markets to people like Elevation and TPH, which is around their same corridor. Elevation Church by Goodman Alabia and TPH by, who's TPH again? This present house by, trying to remember the name, please let me know. Right. But MFM reminds me of Celestial Church. Yeah, no, Igodalo is not. No, Igodalo is not TPH. No, okay, Igodalo is TPH. No, Igodalo is not TPH. No, this present house is not Igodalo. Igodalo is the one on any road. Can anyone confirm for me? No, it's not. You're right. The TPH. No, I don't think so. The tall.
Okay, Tony Rappo.
Yeah, Tony Rappo. I think Tony Rappo is PTH. Yeah, TPH.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, let me give a good example. Have you noticed that, I mean, people are jumping from one church to another. But remember, notice about the Celestial and Cherubim people. People usually don't leave their churches like that.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, people don't leave Celestial. Matter of fact, I saw a trend, and it's so powerful, that even when people leave Celestial, people that leave Celestial, they still have their white garment somewhere. Matter of fact, when Bush come to shove, the Celestial people, is it that your mother is still a Celestial or your father is still a Celestial? When you really need real prayers, people run to those churches, whether in the morning or in the night. You know, some even hide to go there, right? You know, and what's those guys switching costs is the fear of spiritual attack. That and as a real fear in Nigeria, the fear of, let me put it in a nice way, village people. Everybody feels like, a lot of people feel that village people are after them. But that's a real switching cost. Right? That's a real switching cost. right? So you've got to either use that. So that switching cost can come from a place of fear. If you want to sell a switching, if you want to sell a competitive advantage by switching costs, you can either do it by pleasure or by fear, or by pleasure or by fear. So if Costa decides to set up a lounge in a hotel, that would be by pleasure. But if they decide to set up a free workshop, that would be by fear. I don't know if this sort of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So let's move on. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Do more light on this.
Does anybody have any questions? Because in fact, we've turned this into an assignment. If you have a business, you've got to identify your switching costs. What's that thing?
Hello.
Like, sorry, Wilfred.
I think Wilfred has a question.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
I forgot that Wilfred is here, and I meant to go and look for trouble and call House on the Rock. Hey, I'm in trouble today.
No. Anyway, well, it's fine. Now, speaking about the pleasure and pain, it's how the human mind is wired.
It's 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're either running to a pleasure or running from a pain. That's it. Most things you do. I mean, right now, why are we on this call? It's a mix of both. That's also how we treat addictions.
Sorry.
It's replacing one pleasure
I have a
with
question,
another.
please.
Mr. Dayo, please just wait till Mr. Wilfred finishes.
Hello?
And then you can go after. Yeah, Mr. Wilfred, you can just finish.
You can use the hand button. What you do, raise hand button. While other people
exactly.
All right. So the pleasure pain thing is how we deal with addictions and habits and all that. So it's replacing one pleasure with another when it comes to the addiction thing, and trading one pain for another. So why are we on this call? Because it's both pleasure and pain. Somebody has suffered from the pain of ignorance, one, and wants to get out of that and sees it as a way out. But also somebody who loves study and knows the value of knowledge is for the pleasure of it and the pleasure of having a network, So those, and when this is harnessed, really, it's a huge, infinite, limitless business space where you can work with these two things. Thank you very much. That's just my little contribution.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilfred. Thank you. Mr. Dayo, you can go now. You can ask your question. Hello? Okay.
Mr. Dayo,
Mr.
can you hear
Dayo,
us?
I don't think you can. You can just text your question into the chat box and we will answer it.
Can I make a contribution? Ogakwata on the line.
Of course.
Hey, Mr. Solomon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I've dropped it on the chat, please check.
Okay.
All right.
Can I continue, please? Hello?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay. Now, I just want to make a comment based on why I am here. The speed with which I joined this meeting. I joined this meeting without hesitating at all. The moment I saw invitation, in fact, I was so sad that I had missed it 27 minutes after. What am I trying to bring out here is that there is a reputation. I have known Izu for years now. So I'm trying to look for the best word to use to describe my perception of Izu. On Facebook, I gloss through messages. I rarely do that. Once there's anything, Uwauma Izu, I knew that there's something here for me. So I am here now because of that belief I have on his products and his business. And to be frank with you, till this very moment now, I am so, I just, the same impact I have had and I've always had from him is what I'm having today. And I'm not talking of a relationship that is, Izu, I don't think it's less than 10 years. And I still have the same. Now, sorry again, let me conclude. If I should pick anything from you now, there are groups I belong to and I drop Izu there. That means I want to create chaos there because people just don't, Oga Patapata has dropped value here. So there is so much. So I just want to appreciate you, and I think that is what I need to learn from Xavier, to have a value system that you have maintained over the years. I will be very surprised. You are one of those that I have encountered that I rarely meet someone. All the people that have, through my contact with you, gone through your presentation, they still carry that positive mentality. That when you mention Izu, what comes to their mind is positivity. So I think in relation to what you are doing today, I wouldn't know how to classify that. Maybe you should just help me to, what is that thing that over time you've been able to implant on your audience, of which I am one? Thank you.
On a lighter note, I'm saying, who's peeling onions? Who's peeling onions? I'm about to cry. Thank you for that vote of confidence. Thank you very much. I guess one day we're going to have a whole podcast on that. To be honest, I'll be pretending as a throne to say that is one thing. It's a combination of a few things, right? It's never one thing, like the flywheel of a car. It's a combination of different things that make the car move, right? I think first of all, it's just the drive to want to get better every day. The worst thing I ever want to see happen to me as a speaker or as a facilitator or trainer is you come 4 times and you hear the same thing 4 times, right? I feel like you've got to have an urge to say, how can I outdo myself? How can the same people come 6 times? How can they learn the same thing in 6 different ways? Because business is business. Everybody's here for basically how they can make more money, save more money, or look good, right? But can we tell each of those stories in 21 different ways? So I think that's one. And I'll tell you the secret of this book review. For example, the book review is actually about my self-interest. So I realized that the only way to give freshness is to keep supplying more freshness to your mind, right? Because I mean, you can exhaust, this thing is actually not a bottomless pit. You can exhaust it. So it's like the chicken that lays the golden egg, right? You've got to keep feeding that chicken well, else it won't lay egg again. And that's learning. But as we become more, I won't use the word successful, but as we become busier, the trade-off of that is that you can't sit down to read as much as you used to read. So this was my own self-interest of saying, how can I start up a book review? So some of these books that I've not read, but every week I'm forced to either scan through the book, right? So this is really, self-interest is here, right? And it's really, how can I keep learning? And if I can carry other people along, we will. So I think that's the first thing. You have to be able to keep saying, what are the ways I can keep learning? You know, learn. Everybody has got to have a system for learning. And one of my systems for learning is a book club, right? So, and I belong to even the ones that are not even Hexavian related, right? You'll be shocked at how many communities I pay to join. Matter of fact, there's a particular community I bumped into. It's 5 million for a year. It's membership, and I'm saying I have to pay for it because, once again, somebody has to throw down the ladder, right? So I think that's one. Another thing is just ability to teach. Once you keep teaching, the universe finds a way to reward you. You see, the idea of what you sow, you reap. A lot of people have confused that word, right? It's not what you sow. People think what you sow, what you reap. That's what the Bible says, right? You sow what you reap. But people think is actually you sow where you reap. So people assume that is where you sow that you shall reap. Now, if I think where I sow is where I should reap, then I should charge for this session, right? Because I believe some people will still pay for what's paid for. But because I know that I don't have to charge for this and take it from me, as long as this session exists, it would always be free. And anybody that knows Xavier has so many free platforms, Decoded, you know, a lot of things. Because so the idea is you have to have a hunger to want to give people without expecting anything in return. I don't know if it makes you uncomfortable. You know the last thing that happened when I came to speak at your platform for free. Do you remember? Right.
Oh, you know that I'm thinking of so many things. Yeah, but maybe you should spill it out. I remember one that is permanently attached to you now.
Yes, matter of fact, that's what I'm driving at. Where you sow, you reap. So where you sow is not where you reap. Sorry, it's what you sow that you reap. So you don't expect, right? I mean, anybody that knows that I'm sort of premium on unapologetically in terms of number of amount you charge me to speak at an event. But there are times I would speak at an event at no cost. One of them happens to be a particular event, just randomly going there. And strangely, that particular day I went to speak for free, and it cost a lot. There was a long distance. You know, there was a trade-off. There was an opportunity because I was going to be somewhere else. And I remember walking in there and just speaking and pouring my heart the same way I will if I was paid millions for that thing, right? And I met someone there just randomly walking out that is today my wife. So it'd be nice to say that Oga Papa is the agency for my wife. I never spoke at that event.
Congratulations.
I would never have met my wife at that event. And this was years ago. That was where, so once again, the small system, the moving part of the system is, once again, just the drive to want to give yet. Because there's always something for you, but not from the place you think you will come from. This whole trade and barter system that a lot of, even some of our Pentecostal movement is pushing at, you think that because you gave money in this particular place, that place should give you back. Give the money and forget. Somebody will plant a tree for another person to get the shade. Most of the tree you're under for shade when rain is falling, the person that planted that tree never saw the shade, right? Sometimes not even in your generation to manage expectation. It could be your great-grandchildren, whatever it is. And their mentorship, a lot of young people, if you notice how I've taken sort of like the backseat in recent times, my colleagues are more the face of this. They're more doing a lot of these things. So I think it's also those type of things, but a lot more is also about just you genuinely, right? Genuinely asking, how can I serve people better, right? And in that process, you find out that means. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. There'll be a lot more structure. So structure is key, right? You've got to have structure for these things. You've got to have a system for these things. You've got to have the right team, right? And I've always been blessed with the right team. Anybody that knows me knows how I talk about not compromising on my team. I delegate every single thing, right? But there's one thing I don't delegate, which is hiring. Let me know the only reason why I came to the office today. It was because I needed to see a new staff. Any other thing I won't shop. I can go for a whole week and not shop in office. But once it's team related, seeing a new person, 90% of people that work in my team made the first class. So I think that's also another thing. People have got to know that you can't do it all by yourself, and you've got to surround yourself with people who can do it even better than you. I did not make a first class in school. I wish I did. I didn't. But here I am looking for people who are way smarter than me. And in many ways, 90% of people who are around me in my team are way smarter than me, and giving them a chance and letting them do it. Give them a chance and step out of the way. Don't block them when they're doing it. And in line with not blocking them when they're doing it, over to you guys to keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Izu. Before you go, we have to answer Mr. Dayo's question. Izu explained the vitamin and painkiller concepts. I didn't hear the vitamin aspect using examples. I understand the painkiller with the Koschari's example. Mr. Izu, could you just share more light on this matter quickly?
So basically, painkiller and vitamins. Painkiller, you said you understand, so that's very easy. Vitamin is excitement, really. Is there an element in your business that brings excitement? So while a lot of businesses are concentrated on the functionality of their business, right? So you are a restaurant, the functionality of your business is to cook good food, right? For a car, the functionality is to move. And a lot of people are in that place. For example, the functionality of this book review is to pass knowledge, right? But the vitamin of it would be the enjoyability of that process. Everybody goes to school. School is good, but school can be boring depending on who's teaching you. So ability, for example, for me once in a while to tell stories or be witty, that's a vitamin. So you have a very good, you sell chocolate. Your chocolate is so very good, right? But the pack is bad. Good pack, bad pack does not affect the taste of the chocolate, right? I saw something that was powerful. The children products, right, on the shelf, children food products like Frosties, like cornflakes, and the guy showed something really, it was a YouTube video and it was amazing that all the different Frosties, Cerelac, all those things, that's why the ones that have animals, cartoon, all those things, they pack with like cartoons. And please check this when you get home. I think, is it Frosties that has like a tiger, a baby tiger on it, a smiling baby tiger? Guess what? The guy brought like 20 different products of things that had cartoon characters in them. And guess what we all noticed in all of them? All of them, the cartoon characters were looking down, right? So the tiger was looking down. And I was trying to find out the correlation. Then it just hit me that, oh, damn. Most of the time in the supermarket, right? Those things are placed in shelves that are taller than the children. So if the children look up to see the Frosties, they don't just want to see a tiger. They want to see a tiger looking down, which literally means looking at them. Connection. Let me give a practical example. I'm talking to you guys. I'm looking now. Let me just play a game. Imagine I'm talking and I'm like this. I'm still talking, but I'm not connecting with you because I'm still saying something, but it looks like I'm looking at somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sort of makes sense. That is vitamin. The connections you do, right? The engagement you create, the excitement it brings, right? You know, for a Ferrari is a fast car, but it's also a very sexy looking car. Right? We're all going to the same place. We're all going to the same place when we get on a plane, whether you fly business class, first class, economy, whatever it is. But then the business class sometimes costs twice the amount of an economy class, even though you all get there at the same time. Simply by, see all those things they give you, right? In business class is actually vitamin. There's no painkiller. Right? Right? They give a bottle, they say, do you want champagne? You can have unlimited champagne. Everybody's still going to watch a movie when you fly international, right? But they give you maybe better seats. So it's really, how can you make people more, how can you make your product more exciting? As much as you make your product more exciting as a way to trap people, right? The Breakfast with Izu we've been doing for the last 5 months or so. I was just thinking about something a few days ago. I said to my colleague that what will happen if I have a breakfast with Izu in Echo Hotel, and after the breakfast with Izu, we have a boat cruise afterwards for the executives, because we realize that people come to network, but we get all immersed in the technicality of the strategy sessions that we sometimes forget to have lunch or breakfast, even though it's called Breakfast with Izu. Matter of fact, sometimes people say, oh, don't worry, you can skip breakfast. I'm like, how can you skip breakfast when you paid for Breakfast with Izu, right? So we're like, okay, how can we give them more space? Right? So we're saying, oh, what does it take to put them on a yacht? That's a vitamin, because I'm not in the yacht business. I'm not in the travel business. I'm not a tourist. I'm not a tour guide, right? But how can you make it better? So I think I've put more light in this, right? Someone's asking, can I have Izu's number? Yes, I'm going to put it on the chat section, and we can put a call across and we could talk.
Yeah. Mr. Dyer said that you can't.
Of...
Sorry, Pelumi. So sorry I cut you off. So Mr. Dyer said that you can't hear us. Mr. Dyer, you just put your email address in the chat box, and then the video, the recording of this book review will be sent to you. So Pelumi, you can go on.
I think everyone can put their phone numbers and the emails if they want to.
Exactly.
Like the idea behind that is, if you're especially not in our community, so that we can add you to our, so you can get our newsletters and our tips and recordings for this type of videos.
Yes, a link to the HBC. Yeah, a link to the HBC has been dropped. So if you're not part of our community, also join. And speaking of Izu's number, we all know the Breakfast with Izu session, right? It's a session where you get to see all this 100%, right? One-on-one. Just it's not more of a training, it's more of a strategy session where everyone talks about themselves, talks about their businesses and stuff, right? So it's a breakfast session at a hotel that I'll be holding next week, Saturday, right? It's not free. It's not free. I know that Izu's number is free, but to come to the breakfast session is not free. It's just 55,000 naira. So if you want to join, you can message any of the admins and they can take it up from there, right? So I'll also be...
You also know what we spoke about, because once again, and with all sorts of humility, the breakfast issue is not supposed to be a revenue stream enough for us to blow, right? It's basically supposed to be a networking session of very close-minded people. So if you still want to come and then for some strange reason you want a discount or you want to come for free, we'll play a game, right? We'll play a game and you could be part of that winning and you can still come, because for me, the bigger the merrier, right? Especially in terms of quality of people. I mean, you run a business for 50 people, 50 staff, you definitely, or you can refer us to someone that runs a business for 50 staff. Matter of fact, if your boss or your 5 customers can pay for it, you would come for free, just so that people don't lose out on economic grounds, right? And I really want anybody in my network to move from I can't afford it mentality to how can I afford it mentality. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So if you're interested, just message one of the admins or simply just type interested in the chat box and someone will reach out to you. Right, so just to read, I don't want us to miss out on any comments. So ML says some real decision makers businesses can leverage on our quality of facilities, pricing, inventory, transportation, data, and sourcing strategy. These drivers can all be converted to switching costs. So yeah, speaking about switching costs, let's not also forget to analyze our businesses, even analyze our personal lives. As employees, let's even assume that you do not have a business. As employees, you've got to be able to identify why your employer should not replace you with this or that person. What's going to be their switching cost, right? So to your businesses, to your personal lives, that's something we need. I feel like we've done a lot of justice to this aspect of switching costs. So let's not forget that we're reviewing the book Competition Demystified, right? And we're looking at how you can have competitive advantage. Talk about supply, demand. So I'm going to hand over to Shalom to talk about the last one, which is economies of scale. But I'm afraid we actually have to do that as fast as possible because of time. Over to you, Shalom.
Okay. So yes, thank you, Pelumi. That was amazing. That was an amazing session. I'll quickly go over the economy of scale. And it's very, very straightforward. It talks about a company that mass produces. So the more units you produce, the more your cost is spread across the unit. So the higher your production, the lower your fixed cost per unit basis. And that's very elementary. But to just simplify it, so the larger the company operation, the larger they produce, the more the lesser costs they incur. So if a smaller company would like to meet up with the demand of that larger company, it's just going to run into a loss, really. And one other thing that this economy of scale emphasizes is that even if you give that smaller company the same technology, the same equipment, they can't meet up because of they don't have that scale. And what is that scale? The scale does not refer to the size, to the size of the business, but to the market share they have. What does this mean? It means that how many people are actually consuming your product. So you can have a very big factory and you have the capacity to produce for those people. But why would they switch over to you? And how would that smaller company be able to capture the bigger company's market share? So if a bigger company has that market share, that is one thing that they should focus on, and they should try as much as possible to maintain at all time, because of you that bigger company might have that might relax and be like, okay, we have the bigger market share, and then they just seem to have the sense of achievements, but you would be surprised that company how fast that can disappear. So that's what this economy of scale talks about. But I would like to bring it home and give you an example. What example can we give? A very, very big company. You can see Dangote, very, very clear. An example that has been used again and again. Dangote sugar is cheaper because of the scale of his business. It does not only supply for businesses in Nigeria, it supplies for businesses all over West Africa. So you understand that businesses who are supplying for Lagos alone, or for just the west of Nigeria, cannot compare to what Dangote is cost per unit. So that's what it talks about, that competitive advantage that company has because of the scale it has incurred over the years. So yes, we've come to the end of the book review. Let's
use an example that is more relatable, right?
Okay.
Economics, telling me, all you FICO guys, in economics, that's what you call the productivity possibility curve, right? Remember, did you guys do productive possibility curve? I think that's microeconomics. That's microeconomics, right? It's productive possibility cost curve, right? That the more production, the more quantity you produce, right? Like it's sort of like what the marginal utility is, or what the law of diminishing return is. The marginal productivity possibility curve is like the inverse of the law of diminishing return in a strange way, because the more you produce, right, the more your some of your units remain the same after a period of time, right? Some of your cost elements remain the same over a period of time, So let me give a good example. Somebody runs a factory, right? And produces bottle of water, right? Now, if you turn on your gen, right? Maybe you bought your gen for, let me say you bought your gen for 300,000 naira, and you produce 20 packs of water in 1 hour, right? Right? That gen, right, can be used to produce for more than 200, that's in cartons of water. So it's a lot of things, right? So this whole productive productivity curve and invariably the economy of scale happens when you have so much money that you leverage on your fixed cost. You know, there are two costs in business, fixed cost and variable cost. Variable cost will change per unit. Fixed cost will not change per unit. So for example, a barber that has a big shop versus a barber that has a small shop, right? And they're both paying the same, let me say they're paying service charge that is the same, right? If one can take only eight chairs for barbers, 8 barber chairs, I think there's probably a name for that, barber chairs, right? And another one can take 80 barber chairs, right? It would not make a lot of sense, right, for the small guy to compete with the big guy, because we're paying the same thing, but we're making lots more than the other. It's like 2 guys collect 4-bedroom apartments, right? They both have 2 children, right? And a wife, right? 2 men, 2 children, a wife, each of them have 4-bedroom apartment each. Economy of scale is that one, so they both pay the same rent, let me say 4 million a year. Economy of scale is one, Mr. A pays 4 million, Mr. B pays 4 million. Mr. B happens to have turned 2-bedroom out of his 4-bedroom, right, into his office and produces something there, right? Enough that in 1 month he can pay the rent from what he produces, but the other one doesn't, right? So, and there's so many economy of scale. You are using, and people don't even understand this a lot, right? You're using a truck, another person is using a truck. The both of you is a V8 engine, except the other one carries something with it. Yours is for Shakara. It's economy of scale still. But Dangote plays this economy of scale so much because how do you compete with the economy of scale for Dangote if you have so much transportation costs and Dangote owns his own trucks, right? Right? He owns his own trucks. He owns his own warehouse. He owns his own workshop. I don't know. A lot of people don't actually know that Dangote trucks are actually produced by Dangote. He doesn't import his trucks. There's a company called Sino Trucks, which Dangote owns equity in. Yeah, I've got you. That was the exact thing I was trying to say about you backward integrating to your supplier. He must have bought trucks over the years to say, wait a second, this money I'm spending on buying trucks, why don't I just set up my own truck company? Right? Maybe something that Bua can do.
Mr.
Trucks, heavy-duty trucks.
Okay, you're back. You can go on, sir.
You don't produce heavy-duty trucks, right? So let us go into it. So that's a practical example of economy of scale, right? And once again, so many businesses have that as an advantage. You're trying to go head to head with a Chisco. How do you go head to head with Chisco? Like luxury bus, if you have 4 luxury buses and Chisco has 50. But Chisco is going to have some cost that is static, right? Right, well, whether it's 50 or 100, is basically the same type of, in fact, the 2 of you can be in the same area and burn the same type of gen, but he has more capacity than you. And I think people have to understand that. That's why if a small business, before you go head to head with a big business, that's why it's actually stupid for a small business to compete with a big business on the terrains of costs, which is what you call pricing. And I see a lot of small businesses do this. You're trying to compete with this big business that does something as you, and want to reduce your price. Right? In the long run, you would lose out because he has an advantage over you. Right? Look at an Eco Hotel. Right? Eco Hotel would beat a brand, right, that is charging the same amount per room, right? Per room on pricing simply because of the number of rooms that they have. Right? If you run the kind of gen hotel runs, right, for a 50 room, there's no way you can beat a hotel at it, right? Yeah, right. And so that's pretty much it. And I think what small businesses can do now is instead of trying to beat competition on pricing, especially if it's a bigger competition, right? You should beat competition on other things that are not pricing, like painkiller. Sorry, not painkiller, like vitamin. Right, like vitamin. Eco Hotel can do free breakfast with their food, right? Comfortably. Do you see how big the kitchen of Echo Hotel is? Matter of fact, I'm surprised Echo Hotel, their pizza session is not even supplying delivery and beating Domino Pizza, right? So practically speaking, what you can use is how can you make your own hotel more exciting than Echo Hotel would be. So I'll give a practical example. One thing I've always thought about Echo Hotel is Echo Hotel doesn't have privacy. I've always felt that way, right? Every time I go to Echo Hotel, I would always see people that I know on the hallway, by the poolside, you know, anywhere. It's too big that you're probably going to stumble upon people you know there, depending on what your class system is, right? But if you now have a space next to Echo Hotel, and I've always felt that it's a great idea to have a hotel opposite Echo Hotel and give the same service, but more exciting, your advantage could be privacy, right? I don't know if that sort of makes sense, right? So economy of scale is a game that only big businesses should play. Pricing is a game that only big business should play, right? Gala, I've never noticed how big Gala, how much Gala has not. Gala is an enigma. UAC, right? You cannot sell the type of sausage that Gala sells, right? At the price that Gala sells it. You can't try it, right? Every nooks and cranny in fast food, I mean, what you call it now? Chicken Republic has their something express. Booker Hut now has their Booker something express, you know? But check the price of their sausage, even though you might argue the quality. But then, because of how big the factory of UAC is, they can cut down their price. One of the most profitable businesses that Coca-Cola actually has, product that Coca-Cola has, and people take for granted, is their Ever Water. You know, actually, the price of Ever Water can be lower, and is even higher than the average price. Because there's nothing Coca-Cola is buying brand new for that water apart from the bottling machine. First of all,
looks like we have lost Mr. Izu again. I think he's experiencing some network issue and he will join us soon. But may I say something?
I said he'll be back. He'll be back. Okay, let's just read what's in the chat section before Mr. Izu
comes back.
So he said, guess what? Setting up that truck joint venture company has helped to wipe out most of the cost of parts and maintenance for its core logistics operations. Exactly, right? Trying to build that economies of scale. Okay, so it's still not back. So I think Shalom, we can try to say, but I'm sure that we all get it. So is still trying to give more examples of the same points, still on economies of scale.
Economy of scale.
Right. So yeah, Shannon, over to you.
Okay. So I really hope that we have learned something. We have learned something. There isn't any hope anymore. We have learned something. So economy of scale is something that we should go back and implement in our business. We talked about pain points, we talked about fear, we talked about vitamin. So go back and implement this in your businesses, and I'm very, very sure that you would see a change, and you would understand that the time investment you have put into attending this decoded book review would not, you would see it in your business. Okay, so if you have not gone to the chat box to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, who you are, please do that right away. And if you would like the recording of this book review, just put your email address in the chat box and we'll send it to you. Also, please go back to read this book. We only talked about competitive advantage, and that was just one point, like one point in the entire book. There's still so much to read on, so much to enjoy from the book. So please go back and read it again and again. And I'm sure every time you read it, you would learn something. So thank you for taking our time to attend the book review. Really hope you had an amazing. Yeah.
Can you hear me, Shalom?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry to interrupt. Let's not also forget Hexavia. I mean, Hexavia is a management consulting company. The host of this book review, what we do ranges from structuring, corporate development, business plans, marketing plans, the whole package, right? Hexavia is the plug. There's also Financial 360, which is in charge of human resources, especially recruitment, right? We also have Higher Online, which is your one surest plug for building materials, right? So a whole lot, we're a whole lot and we know it, right? But thank you guys for joining our book review session. Please let's also ensure to go back to where we're coming from in terms of the community you're on, right? And then give a shout out to Hexavian's Decoded Book Review. Tell them how it was a nice time. And please, when you're coming next time, invite somebody, bring somebody along, right? So let's also not forget that you're free to, what did you say, Shalom?
No, I want to say that the link is always made available before Friday. So you can always share it to somebody and tell them to attend.
Yeah. And please, we also pick the books about 3-4 days before Friday. So, I mean, we could also look at the book, read it, and then come here and make some. I see people who actually even haven't read the book but still make solid contributions. Not now talking about people who have actually read the book.
I'd like to
right?
know people. Sorry, I figured that I think I left my charger in the house, so my Mac charger. So my laptop battery's off. But is it possible for us to have like a way people can they want to see, they want to review, right? It's against people might have favorite books. Maybe one of these days you guys can do a poll, right? To ask people what books, but please no books, right? No aspire core business strategy, even if it's war books, right? You know, I don't know if that's possible.
Of course, that works. So
you can do
probably
that.
do a poll or something. Yeah, of course. So yeah, once again, also if this is your first time, thanks for coming. You guys are the real G's. If you're not part of the HBC, the Hexavian Business Club, there's a link in the chat box. If you're not a member already, please tap the link to join. We have free business tips and a whole lot of insights there. Well, let's also not forget the breakfast with Izu session. Right, so thanks guys. I think this is the official closure. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time, same place, different book. Yeah, so if just in case you want us to see your beautiful faces as we
you can switch on your camera. Just switch on your camera and say bye.
Hi, Dr. Child. See.
Child and a signature rabbit smile.
I think
Mr. Child, you know you look like Bugs Bunny.
Mr. Kola.
Interesting. Good evening, Mr. Izu. So much value here. Yes,
All I have to do is like somebody that I've met in Oshodi before.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Izu.
Mr.
Good evening, everybody.
Mr. Joshua. Hi. There's so many new people I haven't met before. That's interesting.
Good evening, Mr. Izu.
Yeah, how you doing?
Fine.
Good evening, Mr. Trika.
Thank you. Shalom.
How's everything now?
Very fine, Mr. Izu.
Thank God it's Friday. When are we going to turn up, all of us, this Friday? Oh, by the way, we should have invited them to the Connect Nigeria thing next Friday. I don't know how we forgot that. Maybe we'll still do that next Friday. We're going to have a hangout for people who are in Lagos next week. It's going to be a big on Friday, Connect Nigeria. Hopefully, if you're in the group, we'll share the links and share this, how you're going to. All right, guys, I've got to run. Another meeting's popping in. Take care and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Belumi. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Thank you very much for joining. Hope you're bringing somebody next time.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Thank you
very much. Thanks to the team or thanks to the backend team. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Easy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. You're welcome, guys. All right. Yeah, I think at this point we have to run. It's time to enjoy the weekends.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Have you seen Shalom has gone? Okay, I guess I have to